y'all, welcome to my kitchen. Tonight I'm going to make for you a southern delicacy, fried green tomatoes. If you've ever been to the South and you've ever been to a country cooking place, you're going to see fried green tomatoes on the menu. This is one of my husband's recipes that I'm going to be making for y'all tonight. It's the basic recipe. You can add some other things and other spices, but this is just the plain old good fried green tomato. It's one of those things that you can eat as an appetizer, which I would recommend because you want to eat these when they're hot. Because once you take them out of the grease, that's the best time to eat them because you don't want them to get soggy. And that's why you use a green tomato instead of red, because the red has a lot more moisture in it, and the biggest thing with these is that you're going to want to get all the moisture that you can out of the tomatoes before you start to even do this. So you'll see in a minute why I sliced these already down, because I'm letting them, trying to get some of the moisture out of them. Now I've got them on a tea towel. You can actually put them on paper towels. If you do use a tea towel, make sure it's the kind that won't get lint on your tomatoes. And then I'm gonna dry these off in just a second, and then we're gonna mix up the rest of our mix. Let me tell you what's in this. You're gonna use a cup of self-rising flour. If for some reason you only have the all-purpose, just add a little baking powder to it. It just helps it fry better. But I'm using the self-rising flour. You're gonna want a cup of buttermilk. Now, if you don't have buttermilk on hand, you can use regular milk, but I would half it and only use half a cup, and then add 2 eggs instead of 1. We've got a large egg that we're gonna beat up, and we're gonna put it in with our buttermilk. And then we've got a cup to 2 cups of cornmeal. And then we're gonna do salt and pepper to taste, and I'm gonna put a little sugar on ours. Now, you don't have to, but it just kind of breaks the acidity in the tomato up just a little bit, and actually helps these get a little bit crispier as you're frying them. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and show you, I'm gonna dry these off, and then we're gonna mix up our batter and get it ready. And I'll show you how we do this, because what we're gonna do is once we get this mixed up, you're gonna wanna put them on your rack. If you don't have a rack, that's fine. You can put it on a tea towel, or you can put it on paper towels, but we're gonna let them rest for about 10 minutes once they're coated before we actually put them in the grease. So that helps have everything adhere to the tomato, and they will fry up a golden brown for you. All right, so just throw that in the wash. For all you people who like to say or go green, this is a good way. You don't have to use as many paper products. It's going to go in the trash. This recipe makes me think of one of my favorite movies by the same name, Fried Green Tomatoes. And I can just imagine them making this at the whistle stop. But I had no idea that there was this much to it until I started actually making these. You have to have some patience to make fried green tomatoes, to make them good. All right, so let me go ahead and mix this batter. Basically, you're just gonna beat your egg, and then we're gonna add this into the buttermilk, and then we're just gonna give it a stir. And then we're gonna dip it in each one of these, and we're gonna put it on our rack and let them sit before we actually fry. All right, let's get this in the buttermilk. All right, mix this up. Just want to make sure it's stirred in good. Now, the way you're gonna do each one is we're gonna salt and pepper each side and put a little sugar on each side. And then we're gonna dip it in the flour first, and then in the buttermilk and the egg mixture, and then the cornmeal last. So, like I said, there's a lot of drying that you wanna do on these tomatoes. So, let's start. I'm gonna salt. And this depends on how much salt and pepper you like on yours. It's really to taste. There's no set amount. If you like a lot of pepper, you like a lot of salt, put a lot on. And then, like I said, we're gonna do a little sugar. About as much as you're gonna put as the salt. And this will just, like I said, make it a little sweeter. It's not gonna make it super sweet, but it'll help also with the frying process. All right, now you want to make sure you get it in your flour good. Make sure you get all the sides covered. Flip it over. You can use your hands. That's probably what I'll end up doing. I just figured I'd have a fork here, maybe make it a little easier to show you how to do it. But a lot of times cooking with your hands is just as good. All right, now you shake off the excess flour. And now we're gonna dip it in our buttermilk and egg. You wanna get that in there real good. All right, shake the excess off. And then we're gonna put it in the cornmeal. This is just a good Southern recipe. If you like tomatoes, it's just a different way to make them. Like I said, we just like to eat them plain. You can eat them with a meal or before a meal. A lot of times, like I said, people do them as an appetizer. All right, we got them good and coated. Now, we want to leave them on this rack resting for about 10 minutes. So we're going to continue on. Like I said, this is a slow process, but it'll be worth it in the end once we get them all fried up. So when we come back, we'll get you over to the stove and show you how we fry them. All right, y'all, as you can see, I'm over at the stove. I went ahead and preheated my oil. I've got it in a cast iron skillet. Now you don't have to use that. You can just use a non-stick skillet. You want to put about 1/4 inch of oil or whatever type of grease that you wanted to fry your tomatoes in your pan, and do it over about a medium heat. Now you're going to want to test the oil before you put your tomatoes in, because you want to make sure it's hot enough, but you don't want it too hot so they don't burn. And my son and his friend was over here earlier this evening, and he told me he was going to try one of my recipes, but he said, well, I decided to make fried pork chops. I said, well, that sounds good. He said, but I burnt myself. I said, well, how did you do that? He said, well, because I put a bunch of water in to test the oil. I said, you don't do that, so don't do that at home, please. But anyway, I'm just going to take a little bit of the cornmeal off one of the tomatoes. We're going to put it in this grease, and we're going to see, yeah. You want to make sure it's going to be sizzling. Now, a tip for this, because you have buttermilk in the mix, and of course the tomatoes aren't super hot, you're going to want to make sure that when you put the tomatoes in, you're not going to want to put all of them in all at one time, and you're not going to want to take them all out at one time, because it will drop the temperature of your oil, and then your tomatoes will get mushy. So we're going to go ahead and start frying up a couple at a time, and then we'll add, in and out, and that way it'll maintain the temperature that we need to cook this in. So let me go ahead and get started on that. All right, just want to take your first tomato and put it in your grease. And we're just going to let that cook. You're going to cook them about 4 minutes or so on each side. You just want them to be a nice golden brown color. That way they all come out all looking about the same. So we're going to go ahead and get these fried up, and then we'll come back and show you how they look. As you can see, we've got our fried green tomatoes out of our grease, got them all plated up and ready to eat. My husband likes to eat his with Dijon mustard, and some people like ranch dressing. I'm just gonna eat mine plain tonight, but they are looking delicious. It does take a little time to make these, so you gotta have some patience. It does make a little bit of a mess in your kitchen, but that's okay, because the result is worth it. I hope that y'all will enjoy this recipe and actually try it. Let me know how you like it. and subscribe to my channel, please, and click on the bell so you can get notifications of my upcoming videos. I hope y'all have a great evening, and thanks so much for watching.